National Intelligence, Rick Grenell, and American Conservative Union Chairman, Matt Schlapp.
Morning, everyone. How we doing? Hi, guys. I know it's early, but I did walk by the lobby like 1,000 times last night, and you guys were being good. Everybody was snug in their beds and getting ready for a big weekend of talking about saving our country. And God bless you all, and thank you for being here. It's wonderful to see you all. And I can't think of a better way to start the first full day of CPAC than to be with Rick Grenell. What do you guys think of Rick Grenell? Let me say a few things about Rick. First of all, he's obviously brave, a courageous guy who was unafraid to take on the swamp at a time when the bureaucracy in Washington truly felt invincible. You can't take them on and win. You did, in coordination with the president, in coordination with his team. The other thing about Rick Grenell is you're a good friend. And you're a good friend to the people here in this audience, and we appreciate you.
Oh, thanks, man.
So tell folks your mood of things. What's going on?
Well, first of all, it's so great to be in Texas, right?
It is. It's wonderful.
How many people are from California? We got a lot of Californians. I mean, we don't even recognize each other because we're just taking the masks off.
That's right.
In California, and you still get a lot of looks, even when you're outside in California. So it's nice to be in Texas. It's nice to be here celebrating freedom and being unapologetic about freedom. I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged because I feel like we have a lot of fighters, and that's what we need. We need people who are willing to fight. I've been saying this over and over, and I really believe it. You know, every great civilization has lasted roughly 250 years.
I don't like to hear that.
And it's the truth. If you go back in history and you look at all of our great civilizations, it's been 250 years. And we're butting up against that. We're coming there. And so the Ronald Reagan admonishment that every generation has to fight for their freedom is a real thing right now. And so I'm tired of people who are lazy and nervous and, you know, oh, they don't want to be canceled on Facebook. Look, we're not asking you to storm the beaches of Normandy.
Right.
We're asking you to be honest on Facebook. It seems like it's pretty easy. I'm tired of people just complaining about being canceled. I'm like, don't let them cancel you.
Yep.
We have half the country is with us, probably more. And the reality is that we don't need to be afraid. We need to defend each other, and when one person stands up, join them. Stop being so timid.
Well, that's music to these people's ears, because the good news is you should all know CPAC sold out. Couldn't sell another ticket. We all over the country. We're starting pretty early on a Saturday. We're going to start pretty early on a Sunday. We're going to go late both days because there's so much to talk about. And there's, quite honestly, not everything that we're reading and seeing is positive. Coming out of D.C., the new administration, I don't think I've ever seen quite the political whiplash of the change. Maybe we can understand a little bit how Democrats felt when Donald Trump came in and started actually doing all those things he said he was going to do. One thing about Democrats you have to give them credit for is they've become a socialist party, and that's what their policies are. And especially true in foreign policy.
Yeah, I actually don't think that we have a fight in Washington between Republicans and Democrats anymore. I think it's between those who love Washington, D.C., who want to build it up, who want to give it more power and make it a state, and then those in the rest of America. It's Washington versus the rest of America. And you know, I don't know why, but I get really annoyed when I see reporters going to the Nationals game and cheering for Washington, D.C. Because to me, if you're cheering for Washington, D.C., you're never going to report fairly on the budget process. Because you want Washington, D.C. to be bigger, stronger, better. And so when there is a budget debate about whether or not to fund and create bigger federal government bureaucracies, you're always going to be like, yeah, I'm Washington, D.C., it's where I go to school, where I go to church. And I feel like that is a huge problem. We're getting people who move to Washington, who stay in Washington, who cheer for Washington, and therefore they're going to defend Washington against the rest of us.
I want to be a little more provocative. They don't just defend it. They go to the games, they kind of chum around with each other, and then they cover up for each other. And what's happening with Democrats, what we saw with Obama, you all remember, good reporters were trailed. They used the IRS to go after, young Tea Party groups, denying them their tax-exempt status letters. They used their power, you have a stronger word, they used their power to go after their political opponents. Something Republicans don't do.
They weaponize government, and so I've worked at the State Department for 11 years, and when other countries weaponize government, when they go after their political opponents, when they try to crush the person that they just beat because they don't want that person to come back, we at the State Department condemn that action. We stand up and we call it out, and we say, you cannot do this and claim to be a democracy. We actually ding you on the democracy reports. If you go after your political opponents, if you use the judiciary to go after the political opponents, if you use the media to go after your political opponents, we call you out at the State Department. We have a Secretary of State right now who has weaponized the visa and the travel programs that we have to allow people to come into the U.S. And let me give you an example. Out of the blue, about 2 months ago, all of a sudden, our Secretary of State, Blinken, issues a press release barring certain Albanians from entering the country. And I was like, where did this come from? All of a sudden, we're going after Albanians, and then it was Bulgarians, and then I looked, oh, lo and behold, it's all of the conservatives in these countries that were possibly thinking of running for office and coming back are immediately being restricted. They're put on the list, they can't enter the United States, and now they've got this thing of U.S. sanctions on them. So it's a terrible thing in these countries, right? I don't know if you know this, but Secretary Blinken's parents have funded at the George Soros Center the data program. It's called the Blinken Center. Look it up. This has never hit the media. How in the world does our Secretary of State have this cozy relationship with George Soros, and it's not being reported, and now he's weaponizing the travel restrictions into the United States, in the Balkans, in Eastern Europe, and they're just getting away with it. I literally contacted some State Department reporters, and they were like, oh, this seems complicated. I'm like, yes, it's complicated, but you know what? You're going to have to report on it. Like, it doesn't happen.
Actually, I think it's simple. If you're trying to change the country with this whole idea of globalism, a free society, which is such a crazy name, the wrong name. If you're trying to do that, what's the best way to do that? Make sure there's no next generation of Maggie Thatchers in any important countries.
Well, this is the whole idea of weaponizing their power. I mean, as you said, they do it with the IRS. They're clearly doing it with DOJ, right? They're campaigning on issues to say, I'm going to go after the Trump supporters. Again, the State Department would call this out if it happened in another country. And yet it's happening in our country. And the media is a whole nother issue. I no longer believe that they're just biased. Giving them an easy answer of, oh, they just have their world view is a biased worldview because of who they are. No, they are propagandists. They are protecting the ruling party. And honestly, I have been in the room where State Department career officials will look at world leaders and say, let me say one thing, You can't weaponize the media like this. We have been in the business of telling world leaders, don't play to the same media that you control. You got to open up yourself to real journalists. You have to be able to talk freely and be scrutinized freely. And yet we have in this country, I mean, when was the last time you saw a Biden administration official go on Fox or Newsmax? I mean, they stick to CNN and MSNBC. They cheerlead the whole way. They get all easy questions. And, this is terrible for our system. I grew up in the era where we used to talk about tolerance and diversity. And inherent in that whole idea of being tolerant is we don't agree, but I'm going to tolerate your views. And you are going to recognize that diverse views are a really good thing. Now, that's the way we were taught for the last 20 years. Well, yesterday's champions of diversity are today's intolerance. They're completely intolerant. They run out of the room. We're teaching our kids to not listen. First of all, let's teach our kids and our grandkids to listen and to maybe learn from someone else and not run out of the room and put your fingers in your ears and then go cancel somebody because you don't agree. We've got to start saying, be tolerant and value diversity. We're going to start using their words against them.
Well, because, this word fascism gets tossed around a lot. And the thing is, because our kids aren't taught history and our grandkids aren't taught history, the assumption is that fascism comes out of conservatism. And this is the insanity where conservatism actually comes out of this word, the L word, liberalism. And it was all about enlightening yourself, your brain, educating yourself to understand issues and being open to the idea that if you follow truth, and truth is married to facts, you can come to the right conclusions. They grabbed the word from us, just like they're now blue. We were always blue. Now they're blue. We're so dumb. We're like, oh, okay, now we're red. Those of you who are old enough, we used to watch the presidential returns. It's like, okay, we're blue, we're blue. One year we were red, and we're like, we're such sheep. Oh, we're red. We were liberals. We were the classical liberals. They stole the word. We're like, oh, okay, well, we got to come up with our own word. Let's take all the words back.
Yeah, for sure. We got to start fighting back. You touched on something that I want to touch on is first and second generation American. Who's a first and second generation American? Raise your hand. First and second generation Americans are some of the most vocal people in this country to stop fascism and to support Donald Trump. And one of the reasons why that is because they've seen it. They've come from countries where they've noticed when the media takes over, when there is no debate, when you push intolerance. They are the canaries in the coal mine for us. So many first and second generation Americans are saying, wake up. And yet we have 6, 7, 8 generation Americans who are so comfortable here that they begin to burn the flag and hate America. And that's the problem, is we got to remind people in this country how great this country is. And the best way to do it is to listen to first and second generation American stories.
We have changed from this idea that America is so great and so strong that even her own people can burn her flag and survive. That was a lesson, even though we don't like the act. That has morphed into America is a rotten place where you wouldn't want to stand for her values, and you should burn the flag.
It's Jean Kirkpatrick was right when she said it's the blame America first crowd.
That's right. Well, for a lot of us, I can't be more un-Californian, just so you know. Actually, I've been going out there. I see Priscilla over here. I've been going out there. There's great people in California. Rick Grenell's in California. Some of you are from California.
First of all, you could take your tie off. That would help.
I know. I'm just, what can I do? You are what you are. But the fact is there is a lot of interesting things going on in California. I would say what I am witnessing with the people I'm talking to is if they follow your advice and we kind of take away the labels, take away the donkey and the elephant, Republican and Democrat, and if you actually just say, hey, I have the best intentions to make a prosperous California? So a lot of people are rethinking things. Is that wrong?
Yeah, look, the mismanagement in California has convinced Republicans, Democrats, declined to state people that we can't have a one-party rule anymore like this. I mean, Gavin Newsom just yesterday told everybody that we have to start conserving 15% of the water that we're using. We live on the ocean. What are you talking about? We live on the ocean. I'm tired of conserving and having brown grass because we can't desalinate. Every single Middle East country who is in the desert has plenty of water and green grass. How can we not figure this out? It's because we've had Democrats control California for too long. So what I have said is that I want to do to California what Stacey Abrams did to Georgia. It's going to take us 4 years, 5 years maybe, but we are going to systematically go through. I have an organization called Fix California. Please go to fixcalifornia.com, sign up and help us, and we're doing 3 things very quickly. 1, we're suing every single county in the state of California to clean up their voter rolls. We just put them on notice. We sent them the legal arguments, and we said, you clean it up, or we will take you to court. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we're doing a huge data surge in all of our top counties to find conservative voters. Conservative voters in California have given up. They're not voting. They feel like there's no use to voting. We're going to find them, register them, and change the game that way. And the last thing we're doing is we're putting on the ballot, and this is really important for a national audience, because as the largest state and the greatest state, California, as the largest state, I just want to say this, that if we can do this third thing in 2022, it's going to impact every single other state. What we are putting to the voters of California in 2022 is a ballot initiative, and we govern in California through tons of ballot initiatives. When you go to vote, you also vote on like 25 things and you read through. That's the way we do it in California. We're putting a ballot initiative. Every single voter in California will be asked, do you want to upend the way we fund education, where the money follows the student and the parent's choice? No matter what school you pick, homeschool, private school, Catholic school, evangelical school, the government school, whatever school you and your family decide is best for your kid, the state money that is spent per pupil will follow your decision. It is your money. We will create competition amongst schools. I don't know why in today's world, in America, we are telling people that you have to go to the school down the street, the government school. No matter how terrible that government school is, you have to go. Now, everybody will tell me that the teachers' unions are ready to fight me in 2022 on this issue. And I say after a year of Zoom school, we are ready for this fight because they have been exposed. Bring it on. We will fight them.
Talk about not closing churches. I feel like I'm in a church right now. I think they like that. I heard some amens. I really have to bring up one thing. I didn't love this analogy to Stacey Abrams, okay? I think the difference between you and Stacey Abrams is that when you win the race, you're actually going to be the winner.
We should talk about Tucker.
Yeah, I think Rick's right. We've been commiserating, I'd say is the right word, in this whole weaponization. And one of the things that really, really upset me is the idea, many of us are more libertarian on the idea of what the government should do in terms of surveillance, listening in. We were told we had to do certain things because of the threat of terrorism and what happened on 9/11. And, you know, I remember being in the White House, Rick, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, in the conversations of the Patriot Act, and I'm not going to relay anything I shouldn't, but I remember telling the lawyers who, when we were pushing this legislation, lawyers, some of whom you'll know, and I said, what will happen if we give these great powers to an administration? What will happen if somebody starts to abuse them? And the answer I got was, oh, you don't understand. The very best people will be the people who will make these decisions.
The very best people from Washington, D.C.
And now if you had to pick one person in the media who's the biggest threat to this crowd, probably Tucker Carlson.
Look, what's happened to Tucker is very, very scary because, look, we have a system, and I'm going to be very careful in my words so that, you know, as former acting director of national intelligence, I got to be very careful on what I know. It's hard to remember what you know and what you're not supposed to say.
When you get to be my age, I just forget everything, so it doesn't matter.
That's why we're never going to give you a security clearance.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, there's other reasons.
We have a process in this country that when our intelligence officers find information about other countries, that somehow an American is swept in on that, the American is always not identified. You either say U.S. person or U.S. journalist or U.S. member of Congress. When I was acting DNI, I actually had to issue a new rule because the intelligence officers were abusing the system when identifying members of Congress. They were saying things like, a U.S. member of Congress in the leadership from Kentucky. And I was like, okay, come on. We know exactly who you're talking about. Dial it back. And so I made them go back to the original characterizations of U.S. member of Congress. That's it. Tucker Carlson should have been identified as U.S. journalist. He was trying to get an interview with Putin. This is not what I'm telling you anything new. This is what Tucker has admitted.
By the way, CNN does interviews with world leaders.
MSNBC, NBC, they've all done it. And so Tucker said, yes, I was trying to get an interview with Putin. So you imagine if somebody said, try to interview a world leader, you think, who do I know in common? I'm going to email some people and see if you can vouch for me. And so this is the normal process that journalists go through, and Tucker was doing that. Somehow, he was not identified as a U.S. journalist. Somehow, somebody said, who is this? Let's unmask him. Tucker Carlson was unmasked by somebody. We need to find out who did that, because if you unmask, two things happen. One, you are not supposed to tell anyone else. Now, everybody knows Kash Patel worked with me at DNI. Kash is great. I remember a situation where I unmasked somebody because we needed to know whether or not we'd give somebody a defensive briefing. And I said, who is this person? They came in, they told me who the person was. Kash came in a little bit later and he said, hey, I saw in the intel this person, we should really find out who this is. And I said, yeah, I found out. And he said, oh, who is it? And I said, Kash, you gotta go, and request the unmask because they have to have everyone's name. I'm not allowed to tell people. I was the acting DNI, and I'm not allowed to tell anybody but the President of the United States. So there is a process. Somebody asked who this U.S. journalist was. And they went through the process of unmasking, and then somebody came in and said to this person, whoever it is, I don't know who it is, it's Tucker Carlson from Fox News. That should have never been shared with anybody. It's illegal. So I would like to know who unmasked Tucker, and secondly, we need to know who that person told, because it clearly got out. There are two violations there, and somebody should lose their security clearance and possibly be prosecuted for leaking this.
Yeah, amen. We should have a lot of fun. We're so glad you're here. But what's going on in our country we're just at the tip of seeing a replay of some real abuses. And the early indicators are quite troubling. And so what I realized yesterday, we heard from Secretary Bernhardt, we heard from Matt Whitaker. You guys are going to hear from all these folks as well yesterday. What has happened for the first time in our country is people who were in senior positions like Rick in the Trump administration. You know, parliamentary systems have like a shadow cabinet. And what we have for the very first time is, because it's so searing what's happening in our country and so troubling, people like you who could walk away and just have fun and, you know, write a book and have a great life. Instead, you're doubling down to try to save the country, and we honor and respect you for it. Thanks for being here. Good job.
Thank you.
You hear that?